Well, good evening, my dear family and brothers and sisters in Christ. Back here at St. Andrew's Cathedral for our little mission. I think I began at the very beginning last Monday evening already. My goodness, it's Thursday already. But I began with something that one of our elders 40 years ago I heard say many times. He would speak this in longhouse gatherings. You gotta slow down. We're going too fast. We're gonna get hurt. Gotta slow down. So it's a wonderful time of year when we are invited to slow down in the Advent time. And in the slowing down, there's something that allows our eyes to see and our ears to listen and our souls to feel the presence of God. And so this evening, this encounter with Jesus Christ, the light of the world, will reach a pinnacle of revelation in this fourth luminous mystery, which is the Transfiguration. And this one, above all the others, is truly mysterious. I don't know whether I'm going to help to unveil some of the mystery. I may even create more mystery, but I think that may be okay. So let's move on, and as I just place my books here on my little piano stool and sit here next to our, I keep calling the Advent wreath my campfire. Well, it's kind of like a campfire. And welcome you to our home here, St. Andrew's. And thank you once again for welcoming me into your homes and into your living rooms through this wonderful technology that Margaret is taking care of this evening. You probably were wondering maybe last night and tonight that some of the shots with the camera haven't been quite as perfect as usual, and that's because one of our cameras is down, and I'm looking over there at it, and there's a big ladder next to it, and I'm told it will get fixed for Friday. So anyway, this is all part of living in this pilgrim journey this time of year. But during this pilgrim journey, this feast or this luminous mystery of the Transfiguration will help us to truly encounter the divine mystery of our God in Jesus Christ. And so just to maybe start with going to get my glasses, excuse me for a moment. Speaking of being able to see, you reach a certain point, or at least I have reached a certain point of needing glasses. And that might be a good story to start with, even though it's not a Christmas story. Why I discovered that I needed glasses and how vital light is, and how this mystery of the Transfiguration is in many ways an explosion of light, if you can see it. Okay, this is the key thing, being able to see this light of the divine presence of Jesus Christ. So, once upon a time, as most of my stories begin, I was at a conference in Toronto, And this actually ties in very beautifully to our Holy Father's encyclical Fratelli Tutti on fraternal harmony in the world and reaching out to others in dialogue. So I'm at a conference, and at that particular time I was the president of the Interfaith Committee for Corrections and Chaplaincy in Canada. And so the group was multi-faith. There were members from across Canada, and at that particular time I was acting as the president. And so we were in Toronto. I remember the time, it was I think May or June for our spring meeting. We were staying near or at the University of Toronto, always trying to find a relatively reasonable place to stay for a 4-day conference. At that time, and this is way back, I guess mid-early 90s, I guess. And, I should know, let's see. I guess it was about 1999 or 1997, yes, 1997. So in 1997, yes. So anyway, I'm at this conference, and about that time, we were having and beginning to have a hope for a more robust dialogue with the Muslim faith, the faith of Islam. And I remember Dr. Sheikh Shakir was the Muslim representative on our Interfaith Committee. And so we were trying to discern with the multitude of Islamic groups in Canada, even at that time, who represents the voice of Islam in Canada? Well, that's not so simple, but we did discover an organization called the Canadian Council of Imams, and its headquarters was in Mississauga. So I have been chosen to go and listen to the Imams speak about their need for robust chaplaincy services in prison institutions and what could the interfaith do. And so it was really going to be an opportunity to have a dialogue and try to meet our common needs of ministering to people inside our prison institutions in Canada. So I am to be picked up at 5 o'clock at the front door. At 4:50, I am doing up my clerical shirt, and the top button came off. And I only have one clerical shirt. You gotta understand how I travel. I travel extremely light. I do not check baggage. Just saying, I don't check baggage. And I don't take 5 pieces on board either, just a tiny little pack sack. So I got one clerical shirt, and but I am a smart little camper because I've got a little sewing kit. And so I've got my little sewing kit, and I go into my little pack sack and I pull out my little sewing kit, and lo and behold, there's a little button there, and there's a little needle, and there's some white thread, and I am going to sew on a button, which of course I've done all my life. And here I am in this hotel room, and I am trying to thread the needle. Oh, I can't see it. So I went to the window, and the sunlight is literally beaming in the window. It is just a bright late afternoon in Toronto. And there in the brightest sunlight you can imagine, my arms are extended as far as they can go, and I am trying to thread the needle. It is now 3 minutes to 5 o'clock, and my ride is arriving. I cannot thread the needle. I can't see. Oh, so of course, in a kind of state of panic, I ran out of the hotel room into the hallway, and I went to the next door, and I just started to knock on the door. Well, I think I might have been banging. And somebody came to the door, and my first words to this individual that stood there at the door, because they opened the door, and my first words were, "I can't see." I know they looked at me in a kind of a shock. I said, I mean, I can't thread this needle. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Would you mind threading the needle for me? Anyway, very graciously, they took the needle and thread and they threaded it. And I went back into the room and I was able to sew on the button, lickety-split, and down I went to the front and made my ride for this very, very important dialogue and conversation with the Canadian Council of Imams. How important it is to be able to see, and how necessary it is to have light to be able to see. And so here is the gospel of the Transfiguration. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured there before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise up, and do not be afraid." And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, "Do not tell the vision to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." Of course, the most central understanding of this particular moment of the Transfiguration with these 3 disciples is that it was to truly give them strength and courage and conviction to see Jesus through the tragedy of the cross. It was an experience of light beyond anything we can even imagine. It was for these disciples to discover the source of glory, the reality of glory, a heavenly glimpse, something of the transcendent, the omnipotent, the far and away, and yet the very close, and the very encounter with the humanity of Christ. It was very much what we say in our liturgy just before we have the offering of the bread and the wine, in a moment that most are not aware of, and very seldom do we hear it spoken, except in these liturgies that are rather quiet and without singing. I pour a little wine in the chalice, and then while putting in a few drops of water, the priest says, by the mingling of this water and wine, we come to share in the divinity of Christ, who humbled himself to share in our humanity. And so this is something of the mystery of this luminous mystery, a mystery of light that shines forth from the glory of heaven, that transfigures the face and the garments of Christ, and a voice is coming from the heavens. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And so what I want to just do here briefly is suggest to you 3 ways that we too, in our humanity, in our living in this time, in this age, in our flesh and our blood, that we too can have something of that experience of the transfigured Christ, so that we're able to carry on, to move forward, to be lifted up, and to continue to keep our sights on the horizon, and to know that it is Jesus Christ that illumines everything. So here are 3 indicators from this particular gospel story of the Transfiguration. The first one is clearly spoken in the voice from the heavens in the clouds. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. This is, of course, foundational for our Christian faith, to, as it were, claim Jesus Christ as the Son of God, to acknowledge Jesus Christ as the eternal God, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, one in being with the Father, through whom all things came to be. And so this feast confirms us in the divinity of Jesus Christ. He is not just the prophet, a nice man, a good fellow, a wonder worker. This is the Son of God. This is God. And so that is one of the great moments here in the Transfiguration, that the disciples come to experience the Godhead in Jesus Christ transfigured. Very important, a foundational grace of our Christian faith, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. The second thing, and part of this, is that at the end of that, listen to him, my beloved Son. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. The words also say, listen to him. And so let me suggest that as one of the primary ways of experiencing the divine, the transfigured, the voice from the heavens, as it were, is in listening. The silence of prayer. The silence of Nazareth, where Jesus spent most of his life, in the silence of his foster father Joseph's workshop. There is, let me suggest, a great need for silence in our world and in our lives. It's probably one of the most repeated vignettes of the 4 Gospels. Jesus would go off by himself to the mountain, to the desert. Jesus would go off by himself to the mountain or to the desert or the seashore, to listen to his Father. Of all people, he shows us a way to encounter the light, the voice of God, to listen. There is a very good reason, I believe, why we got 2 ears and only 1 mouth. Of course, I guess I talk too much anyway, I know. I probably do. But I also absolutely cherish silence. Oh, when I have time off, I want to go where there is nothing. I want to be someplace where there's no flyovers. I've had this deep inner yearning since I was little. Take me to the wilderness, please. Drop me in the middle of what most people call nowhere. Amen. And it's simply, I think it's a deep, deep yearning in my soul and my heart for silence. I want to hear. I do want to hear. I want to hear God. And I think God's speaking all the time. But we have such a hard time turning off all the other noise and listening. So I'd say that to experience the divine is to want to move towards at least some place, some time of silence. And we hear then. We hear God's voice and word in the scriptures. We listen intently. The second way is, of course, a way that is announced at the beginning of Advent. Stay awake, watch, watch, watch. That's why I wanted to tell you about my glasses, why I ended up having to get glasses. I couldn't thread a needle. I couldn't see. Seeing with our eyes, the light, the glory, the beauty. And that's one of the ways that I'm so certain that the transfigured divine, the divine radiance of our God is experienced in our humble little human way, is in beauty, to behold beauty. And it comes we're drawn to beauty. Look at this cathedral. It is beautiful. It's architecturally beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful at least for our mind's eye. We create art. It's even the simplest thing. The child takes a crayon and we've seen it. They make little circles on a piece of paper and this and that and the other thing. It's one of the earliest things they start to do, and it all is jibbledy-jabbledy, and they're so delighted. Oh, they're delighted. They know it's beautiful. They know it's beautiful. Oh, I've seen some amazing little children's drawings. It's really wonderful. They'll send me a card or something once in a while from kindergarten or even younger. And especially when Merlin was on his little TV gig here and doing the Q&A, I would get these lovely little cards and little drawings of Merlin, Beauty simply raises us. It lifts our hearts. The beautiful music, beautiful architecture, beautiful painting, beautiful environment. I mean, this is one of the things that, oh my goodness, dear God, you have dropped us into heaven. Every corner of this diocese, every turn on a road, and believe me, they're all curvy. I drive them all the time. Every single little bend in every single road in this diocese is a panorama of utter transfiguration right before us, right in our midst. It just, oh boy, I tell you, I never get tired of driving around this diocese, man. And every season and every weather condition, and you know, I bring my camera because I want to capture this, and I can't capture it on a camera. It's just amazing. One of the things that is sheer beauty this time of year, and is a source of amazing joy for me personally, is the sunrises. And I have noticed this over many, many years. This time of year, of course, it's nice that the sunrise is later. You know, when sunrise is 4:30 in the morning, you got to get up pretty early. This time of year, it's nice, you know, because you get up when it's dark and you have your coffee and, oh, there's a little bit of light coming. And man, let me tell you, the colors of the sunrise are the colors of Advent. They are the purple and the pink hues of the Advent candles. This is beauty. So one of the ways that we are, as it were, encountering the divine and trying to grasp the mystery of God is in beauty. And if you need to get a pair of glasses so you can see it, well, you got to get some glasses. You know, it really is so important to behold beauty. Again, it takes time. And you got to slow down to see it. It's just like you got to be silent to hear, to listen to the Son, to listen to Jesus. We got to be quiet, and we've got to slow down to see. And so this brings me to the third way that we can, I believe, truly experience the divine and have our hearts lifted and radiant, because when we experience the divine, when we grasp something of the mystery of the radiant glory of Jesus Christ, like these disciples, well, if it happened like this to you or to me, we would fall down on the ground, flat on our face in fear. So it doesn't happen like this very often. It happens in a much more gentle way. And so this third way is what I would call mindfulness. That the glory of God is revealed in our neighbors, in our family. To be mindful. And we know it does take slowing down and listening. To listen to the other. To be perceptive. Is to be mindful. And it is an experience of the divine. And so one of the graces I pray for all the time, because I have a hard time slowing down and not being on the move all the time, is the grace to somehow embrace this, what I call this COVID time. Certainly it is. There's a lot of tragedy and a lot of difficulties, but the slowdown of this has really allowed some real beauty to show up. We know this scientifically. We know that people that had asthma in Los Angeles, when there were no cars on the road, they could breathe. You know, I think that's pretty important. And you know, maybe we're going to look back and we're going to say, hey, you know what? It's really important that we can breathe. Maybe it isn't so important that we drive to the office every day. You know, we're really learning some pretty cool stuff. You know, I can hardly wait to how we're going to do things different. You know, it's really good. I heard reports that they could hear birds in some of the biggest cities in the world, where the noise level is just over the top. And in this big shutdown thing that happened last spring, people reported being able to hear birds. Well, I don't know. Maybe we don't think hearing birds is such a big deal, but I think it's a big deal. I think that, you know, people with asthma that live in Los Angeles, I think it's a big deal if they can breathe. You know, maybe we don't need to drive to a tower and sit in a cubicle and look at a screen all day. You know, maybe we could sit at our home and look at that screen. So I'm pretty excited about what might come out of all of this, as difficult as it may be. And I would see some of these things as a divine, a spark of light. Oh yeah, you know, that's a really good idea. I don't need to be on the 401 for 5 hours every day. Wow. I could stay home and watch the birds in my backyard while I look at my computer screen. There's just some amazing things that are showing up, and as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about them. Air that you can breathe, sound that is at a level so you can hear birds sing, the appreciation of beauty, maybe green instead of asphalt. We got some environmental challenges. There could be some learnings. Anyway, transfiguration, the divine, to be mindful. My father used to use the word pay attention. I think he had to say that to me quite often as I would be daydreaming, I think, during my homework or at school. You know, the teacher would say, pay attention. Yeah, we gotta pay attention, you know. We pay attention by listening, we pay attention by keeping our eyes open and seeing, especially being able to see beauty, to be on the outlook for beauty. And beauty lifts the soul, lifts the spirit, lifts the heart. Beauty causes a light to go on inside our souls. It's really important. And we're so privileged here that we don't have to go too far to see beauty. I mean, it is just so present in the people, even the streets, and in the ocean and the sky and the mountains and the rivers, and oh boy. Anyway, this wonderful luminous mystery of the Transfiguration is such an invitation to wonder and awe. To mystery. It's really important to have mystery and to have wonder and awe in our hearts and in our lives. Wonder and awe St. John Paul II said, is the gospel. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? You know, what a description of the gospel, the good news, the proclamation. And he said in one of his encyclicals that wonder and awe is the gospel. And so my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, my dear family, I pray that we all have at least some time, some moments, or even some memories of wonder and awe, and memories and experiences of beauty. That's the one thing good about memory. You can pull back the video, as it were, or the camera shots, or you can bring them forward from the memory and remember the beauty. And when you remember the beauty of something experienced, it brings the same joy, it brings the same smile, it brings the same light. And so it's a good time to remember the beauty, to keep our eyes open to the beauty, take the time to listen. I said when I started that I was going to give everybody a little Christmas story. Well, here's a little 2-minute Christmas story before I end. It doesn't take much light to transfigure a whole town. It happened 5 days before Christmas in the year 2009. Or was it 2010? Let's say 2010, in the town of Dawson City, Yukon. Up there, as you get close to Christmas, there is very little light and the sun does not hit the town. It is behind the mountains. And so you can imagine it is mighty cold. We're talking down into the minus 40s and sometimes minus 50s. That's Celsius. That is one cold place. And there was a Catholic church there called St. Mary's, and the first Catholic school in the Yukon was there called St. Mary's. It was actually run by the Sisters of St. Anne from right here in Victoria. And they were up there since the year 1900. So, long history, long, wonderful presence of the Catholic Church in the city of Dawson, which was, of course, the heart of the Yukon Gold Rush. I could tell you a lot of stories about that, and you'd probably all want to get on a plane and go up there to see it right tomorrow, I'm sure. But anyway, 5 days before Christmas, we have a little system on our buildings up in the Yukon, and they're warning lights. Now, down here you have warning lights if there's a fire or a smoke alarm goes off. But up there we have warning lights if it freezes. Because when it freezes and your building freezes, you got a lot of problems called broken pipes. So, one day, 4 or 5 days before Christmas, I get a call from Darcy Braga. So Darcy Braga, God bless her, she's still up there, and she phones me up. She said her son went by the rectory, and the red light was on. It was always a red light, but it was set up on a cold thing. So if inside the house or inside the building it got below minus 10 or something, this light would go on. And he doesn't know how long it's been on, but he stopped in, and it is minus 40 inside the house. And in the church, there is no heat. And in the basement of the church, which was a huge, huge crawl space, because the church was built up on pilings, so that the heat of the church didn't melt the permafrost, because if you melt the permafrost, the whole building starts to tip over like that. So anyway, you learn a lot of good stuff about engineering when you're a bishop up there. So I get this call and I said, so what's the problem? So I get her son on the line and he says, it looks like the hot water heating pipe that was going from the church boiler over to the house, which was the heating system, it looks like it broke. And because it broke inside a cavity of warm gravel where the hot water heating pipe was, instead of the water glaciering up, which it usually does in freezing temperatures, it flowed down into the basement of the church, which is huge. It's a big church. And so I said, okay, so what's the problem? He says, well, we got 6 feet of water, and on top of the water, there is 2.5 feet of ice. And it came up and put out both burners on the boiler, and the burners are wrecked. Oh, big problem. So I made light of it and I said, so you're telling me we have the second largest indoor hockey rink in Dawson City? He says, I guess you could put it that way, Bishop. Well, anyway, needless to say, after spending, what he spent, a day and a half with an auger drilling down through the ice and getting pumps into there to get the water pumped out, and then putting in a call to Edmonton to get a burner brought up. We could only get one. Then driving it up to Dawson City. The miracle of the whole thing is we were able to get the burner in, the water level and ice lowered in the furnace so that we got the temperature in the church for Christmas Eve Mass at 11 o'clock that night up to a lovely 6 degrees, which compared to 45 outside, minus 45, was absolutely balmy. I only share you with that little story is because I really think that was divine intervention to be able to get a boiler working again at minus 45 temperatures, get enough heat in the building so that you could have a church full of people for the evening Christmas Mass. But it all started because of one little light. And somebody saw that light. And when somebody saw that light, it triggered a whole chain reaction that allowed a whole bunch of other people to be warm and to be lit up for Christmas. It doesn't take much divine intercession or transfiguring grace to change things. As long as we got our eyes open and our ears open, we're going to experience the divinity of Jesus. And we're going to know the power of his glory. So as we continue in this beautiful Advent time, let's just keep our eyes open for the beauty and let the beauty lift our hearts. Keep our ears open. We're going to hear God's voice. We're going to sing. We're going to hear angelic choirs sing. May we all be in some way transformed by the divine, by the mingling of water and wine, so that we might share in the divinity of Christ, who has humbled himself to share in our humanity. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you for gathering. I'm going to end this now and wish you a lovely evening. We'll see you tomorrow for the wrap-up of the light on the horizon, which we'll conclude with the fifth luminous mystery, the institution of the Eucharist. And then we'll be ready for a good Christmas as we've journeyed together in this beautiful time of Advent. So have a great evening. Thanks again for welcoming me into your living rooms, and thank you for coming to our big house here, St. Andrew's Cathedral. God bless you.